Welcome to another episode of DD on the Spot. This is your host, Ryan Johnson. Before I get to our guests here today, I'd like to remind everyone that if you enjoy this content, to please give a like and subscribe down below. I'd greatly appreciate it. We have Stephanie Flesher on the podcast. She's an IFBB Women's Physique Pro coming to us all the way from Indianapolis. But most importantly, she's our current guest. Stephanie, thank you so much for being on the show.
Thank you so much, Ryan.
Absolutely. So why don't you give us a little bit of a backstory first on what really inspired and motivated you to get into shape and, become a bodybuilder?
Okay, so it's kind of funny, actually. I was a gymnast for 13 years of my life, and then that was over, and I went into my party years in my 20s. My sister and I actually decided as New Year resolution we were going to join a gym. We didn't know anything about lifting weights, working out, programming, nutrition, nothing. We just knew join the gym, sign up, get there at least a couple times a week, do some cardio. So we're doing cardio. A month goes by, and I'm actually approached by another gentleman that's a gym member, and he's like, "Hey, do you compete?" And I was like, I don't even know what that is. I just come do cardio with my sister. Next time I saw him, he had like printed off black and white photos of Nicole Wilkins. He said, "You look a lot like her." He's like, and I knew who she was because I'd done gymnastics against her in high school. And I was like, "Oh, so that's what she's doing with her life these days." I took the pictures home and I kind of read up on like the posing and what competing was since I was clueless. And the next time I saw him, he's like, "So what do you think? You think you want to do a show?" I'm like, "Well, I don't know what that means, but let's do it." Like, okay. He's like, "There's a natural show in 8 weeks. I think you can be ready." And again, I'm like, I don't know what I'm getting myself into, but I like the idea of a competition and I'm competitive and, can you help me? And he took me on as a coach under his wing, didn't charge me. He showed me how to lift here and there. He'd take me under his wing on Sundays and taught me some posing. Mind you, he's like a natural IFPA pro, older gentleman, and doesn't know the first thing about figure posing. And believe it or not, I got ready for my first show in 8 weeks and I won my class and the overall. Then I was hooked.
And that's so awesome, and it's great that you won that first show because we have so many people that come on, they're like, "Yeah, it took me for forever to win my first show," but you're one of those lucky ones where you get to win your first show, and I mean, that is so awesome, but I always love to ask because if you were to walk into a gym with 100 people, I always say, there's 100 different ways as to how those people got into shape, whether it comes down to, their diet, their nutrition. There's so many little things that add up to the overall package that people end up seeing. Was that a struggle for you when you were getting started, just sort of figuring out what worked best for your body?
I went total extreme. I was counting the calories in my gum. Like I went ridiculously overboard in the sense that if I felt like I had more energy, I would do more cardio. Like all the time. I became quickly obsessed with doing whatever I thought I could do because my show's in 8 weeks. So unfortunately, I probably took the unhealthy approach at first because I had no background of knowledge. So needless to say, I definitely learned a lot by doing it probably the wrong way.
Well, and it's always great because I always say it's just so much basically being like a mad scientist where you're mixing and matching things and really just figuring out what works best for you. And that's just like everything else. And one of the big things I always say, especially with like the younger generation where everyone wants everything now and they want it yesterday, where they're not willing to, put in the hard work. And it's one of those things where it just takes so much drive and determination to just even get into shape. But then going into a prep, that is just so hard. But I always love to ask because everyone's genetics are different. So what was one body part when you were getting started that really, really took off? And then what was one body part that really lagged behind that you had to sort of train to overdrive? Because I'll give you mine. So, my back, from, lifting, heavy boxes in the trucks, basically through college, I had jobs like that. So I always say that's the one thing that looks like I could ever compete. And then also the one negative though is that I'm 6'3", so my legs are just shot where, I have to train legs into basically overdrive to get them to look any semblance like they are anything good. But what were those body parts for you when you were getting started?
I'm a lot like you in that sense because I have the gymnastic background. My muscle memory and my upper body kicked in full force. I looked like I trained shoulders and back every single day, and I barely even knew what I was doing in the gym. So my first show, my taper and my shoulders were insane, but I didn't really focus on my lower half. And because I never had the basics, the compound movements in the beginning, my legs and my lower half have always kind of struggled. So that's something I have to put more emphasis on now. I train legs 3 times a week, and I've still never had striated glutes yet. So I'm lucky enough in the sense that I don't really train shoulders anymore. I do train back, but I don't really train arms anymore. Upper body just grows really quick for me. And because of my gymnastics background, I do want to say that it has helped so much with like my structure and having that X shape and that taper and that frame that they're looking for. So I have to kind of like you pay more attention to my lower half and do almost just like 1 or 2 full upper body quick pump days to keep maintain what I have.
I always say, especially if you have that background in either like gymnastics or swimming, like a lot of our guests that we have on,
Oh
it's
yeah.
just so important because just to have that foundation already to just build upon. But one of the myths and stereotypes that I love to bust in this podcast, I do it for every single podcast because I just so important, is that it's gotten better the last 5 years, but there are still so many women that have that fear where if they touch one weight, they do one bicep curl, they do one push up, they do one pull up, whatever it is, they're gonna put on 50 pounds of muscle and they're just gonna hulk out. Did you ever have that fear when you were getting started? And even if you didn't, I bet you hear that all the time. How do you like to respond to that?
When I first started as a natural athlete, I didn't even worry about getting too big. I didn't worry about putting on too much muscle or people saying, "Oh, I don't want to, pick up weights." I grow really quickly, so for me, I know that I don't have to spend hours and hours and hours trying. Um, Most people have to try really super hard. So don't worry, you're not going to get bulky. You're not going to look like me. Just you need to weight train for your own health and for longevity of life. And you can do all the cardio that you want. You're not going to have the body just by doing cardio all the time. You need to have some sort of muscle on your structure, and you're not going to blow up. Trust me, you cannot even start just at that level right out the gate. It takes years and years and years of training.
100%. So yeah, I always love to say, yeah, you would be such a hot commodity. But also one of the things that I think affects women so much more than it does guys, I'd say positively though, is the confidence boost that you get. Let's face it, there could be a 400-pound guy that walks into the gym and he just acts confident and that's just the way he is. But for women especially, that is confidence boost is the one thing that you can take from the gym and really adapt it to every other aspect of your life. How have you been able to take that confidence boost from working out, going into bodybuilding, and how have you been able to help out other aspects of your life?
To help out other athletes or other
Other
aspects
aspects
of
of
it.
your life, yeah.
So for me, people never really came up to me and asked me for advice or um, told me I was inspiration to them or motivation to them. And once they started working out and competing, people would come up to me and ask me for these things and tell me I'm such an inspiration. And that in and of itself keeps me going because I'm like, well, I'm just doing what I love to do. I'm doing what comes almost natural to me. And the fact that you're telling me you're inspired inspires me to keep going.
Mhm. Yeah. Yeah, I couldn't agree more. I just gotta say, can you just quick give us a front double bicep because your arms are basically just popping out of your jack. Look at. I was gonna say, everyone, just look at that. It's like that is so. That's unbelievable. I just had to say that because yeah, your vein, you are just popping, and she's 11 weeks out, everyone. So can you imagine what she's gonna look like 11 weeks from now? It's like, good God. But yeah, just that motivation and that it can give women too, and just that that confidence boost is just so important. But I also love to ask, because the general public, I always say, if you're to poll the general public, they never understood really that just to be able to get into shape to go on a prep takes so much hard work and dedication. But going on a prep, that is notching things up to an extreme where you have to get all of your workouts in, your diet has to be perfect, you have to have all of your meals planned, so it just everything has to be so scientific and thorough. Was that a big adjustment for you going on to a prep? Because for so many people, that could be a huge struggle for them.
I think that in the beginning, the hardest part was to have keep the same circle in your life, like the same supporters and friends and family and coworkers. They don't understand the sacrifice and dedication that it takes. And it's not like they don't support it, but they don't fully grasp that I can't go after work and go to Ruth Chris and have a drink with you. I need my 8 to 10 hours of sleep. I have my own meal. Like I don't, I'll go with you, but I'm going to eat out of Tupperware. And maybe that's embarrassing for them. And to be honest, it almost becomes you you start to isolate because you don't really want to be in social settings because your eye is on a different prize now, and that's not something that I get anything out of anymore. I don't need to put myself in situations a where there's temptation, but b where there's people who are naysayers and they just don't get it, even though they say oh, that's for you, that works great for you, and I support you, but do you? Like, I don't, you know what I mean? So in the beginning it was hard. Now my whole circle is different. My supporters, my group is different. My family, they understand, they get it. I mean, they're your family, so they know the drill now. But yeah, at first it's a big shock to your life. You just develop a new community, a new network.
Yeah, I always say just to have that support system is so important because like I started my journey by myself and it was hard enough as it is, but then I started having people, go to the gym with me or just give me confidence and it helps out so much that I couldn't stress that enough for people. But one of the fun questions that I love to ask, because obviously, as you can tell, I'm one of the palest people you'll ever meet in your entire life, being from the upper Midwest. What is that experience like for you when you get to put that tan on? Because we have so many people who come on and say, like, you see muscles that you never even knew that you had. Everything really seems to pop out. What is that experience like for you when you get that tan on?
So for me, having the tan on, the smell of that tan means it's showtime. Time to freaking go. I almost cussed. It's time to
No
go.
problem.
Like that smell is almost like if you like gasoline, you like markers and like Sharpies. It's like what it does to your brain. When I smell that protein, I'm like, yes, we're here. We made it. We did it. It's go time. Once the tan's on, you feel gross. Like as glamorous as you look on stage, you feel and smell disgusting. But all that hard work has come to fruition and it's time to go because you don't get the tan until the night before. So at that point, you're just revved up and then the adrenaline starts going and you're like, hell yeah, I did it. I did not quit. And now just slap my tan on me, give me some carbs, and let's do this.
Well, and I always say, yeah, I've never been tan a day in my life. I either get, burnt to an absolute crisp or I get farmer's tan. I mean, that's just my Scandinavian roots. So yeah, I always have always wanted to know like what that feeling is like. But I also say you also basically have to be like a statue too. That's one thing that I think the general public doesn't realize. I mean, you can't sit on anything, can't really lean up against anything. So it's really just it makes what these competitors go through even more impressive, at least in my opinion. But the biggest thing that I never would have guessed when I started this podcast that I have learned through talking to, hundreds of competitors is that for a lot of these competitors, the general public would not realize posing is the hardest thing for them. I mean, it's harder than their workouts, it's harder than their nutrition. I always like to say now, I mean, I like to compare now posing to being a good driver. I mean, you can be a good driver, you can never be a great driver. You can be a good poser, you can never be a perfect poser. I mean, it's always something that's always ever evolving and you can never really nail it down. What has your experience with posing been like? Because for so many people, I mean, just realizing that, hey, some of these posing sessions that you do, you're sweating more than you did in actual workout. And that can just be tough for a lot of people. But what has your experience with posing been like?
So with posing, it was never really one of those things that was told to me by my coaching that I needed to practice it. Now as a coach, I make my clients pose because I understand the significance of it. When you get on stage, they don't care how much fish and asparagus you had to eat. They're looking at your physique based on your pose. If you don't practice posing every single day, what are you doing? Like your posing can either make or break you on stage. So for me now, as I approach my show a little bit closer, I do implement it. I would say every couple of days, but every time I'm in the gym, I'm at least, flexing or posing or doing something, kind of like checking out how things are going. But as my show gets about 8 weeks out, I will pose every single day for about 15 minutes. And I make all of my clients do the same thing. The reason why, when you get on stage and you're not conditioned in your posing, you can tell these people are not only sweating, but they're out of breath and their diaphragm and their stomach is going in and out. They're out of shape. Well, you're supposed to be in the best shape of your life. How are you out of shape on stage? So posing is critical and crucial. That's all they have to judge you off of is your poses. And let me tell you, my last show, St. Louis, they had me on stage for 19 minutes. You can ask Katie Lee to the show. I think she was just on your podcast
Yep.
the other day. You can ask her, and you can't even prepare for something like that. Had I not had the amount of posing practice I had going into that, I would have really suffered. It comes to the point where, first of all, you're either taking a diuretic or you're depleted, and you've either pulled water. You're already dry. So for to be able to sweat, it's like where is it coming from? The lights are hot, so yeah, you're sweating a little bit from the lights. Your nerves make you sweat. But when you're up there and you're posing nonstop, your lower back is on fire. You cannot feel your legs. I hear out in the audience legs, and I'm like, I think I'm posing them, but I don't know because I can't feel them anymore. So I cannot stress enough how important it is to pose in your prep because that's all that matters in the end. I mean,
Yes.
like I said, they don't know that you can curl 110 pounds for 15 reps, nor do they care. This isn't powerlifting. You're not going up there and lifting weights. You're up there and you're posing. So you have to pose in your prep.
I always say like you could be the biggest, most jacked, muscular person on the planet. If you couldn't pose, I mean, it doesn't matter. You're not going to win anything. So that's just such a huge thing. But have you always been in the physique division, or was that a division that you moved up to? What has been your experience with that?
So a little bit of my competition history. My first year of competing in 2012, I did 3 figure shows in a matter of April to June. So I did figure initially, and then I actually took 2.5 years off, and I did not even step foot in a gym. I was in my 20s, and I went into the party area. I was like, oh, I did bodybuilding. That was fun. That was cool. Blah blah blah. Women's Physique came out actually in 2012, the year I was in figure, and I saw Dale and Bailey, and I was like, dude, that's pretty awesome. And I said, if I ever do compete, I think I would try to do women's physique. So I did, and I hired a judge to help me, and she was a female bodybuilder. So I was like, I want to come back to competing, but I don't want to do figure. I know I can do this. I know I can get that big because I actually don't even have to try. And it'd be nice to actually be able to lift weights how I want to, and it's okay to put on the muscle. I don't have to hold myself back now. And so I hired her, and I mean, ever since I've done women's physique, I knew that was my home. Like that's where I'm supposed to be. People ask me all the time, "Do you ever want to do female bodybuilding?" Nope, I do not. Could I get that big easily? Yes, I could. I eat like a bird just to stay in women's physique. But that's to me like feminine still and pretty and the lines and the structure and the shape. Everything about it is so me. And I will do whatever I can to stay in women's physique and not have to go into bodybuilding.
Well, absolutely, and yeah, like I say, like bodybuilding nowadays, yeah, when I didn't even know before I started this that it had been taken out of the federation. It's just a whole different thing. So yeah, that's just a whole topic in and of itself. But what is your favorite physique pose, and what is your least favorite physique pose?
Ooh, that's a good one. I really like my front relax and my front double. I think back relax is a goofy looking
Yeah.
pose. And ab and thigh,
Yep.
I don't know. Sometimes I'm like, this pose is so stupid.
Abs and thighs is our most popular answer for the least favorite because yeah, it is just such an awkward looking one where you're like you're really making them like look like that. I mean, it's just yeah, that's definitely
There's other ways to flex your abs, but you're not allowed to like pull
hmm
up and show them. I
yeah,
just don't really get it.
yeah.
I feel like there could be other poses. Maybe they could, I think maybe they should do like a classic pose
Mhm.
for women's physique, like they do in men's classic. They tell you your favorite classical pose. I think that would be really cool. That would force the athletes to kind of do some history and like do their research and homework and bring some of that classic aesthetic look back.
What ways do you try to differentiate your posing between shows? Because we have some people that they try to just do the same routine, but then you got to mix things up a little bit. How do you like to sort of mix things up so that you're not just doing the same bland, posing routine as you do every single show?
So we have 5 mandatory poses, but in those mandatory poses, you don't have to do what everyone else does. So I try to manipulate them a little bit to where it's still what they're calling out, but I put my own flair on it, or I'm showcasing what I think looks the best aesthetically for me and my physique. But every single show, I will create a new prejudging routine and a new posing routine with different music. I feel like if you don't put in the effort to do that, then what? I mean, that's what we're doing. We're posing. So you can put in some effort the last 8 weeks and create a 60-second routine.
Now, out of all the podcasts that I do, I always love to, come up with a few new questions for every single guest. So, what to you makes a good song for you to choose to pose to?
I tell people that when you pick your music, you should definitely pick something that suits your personality, but also keep in mind that in your posing, you need like smooth transitions. You can't really do smooth transitions to rap.
Yep.
You can't really do smooth transitions to dubstep. Now, you can pick a couple like different songs and have it edited together if you know someone that can do that. But for me, when I'm in the gym and a song comes on, I'll know that's the one. That's the one I want to do it to. And for me, I love a song that starts off slow and then has a crazy like beat drop, and I'll hit like a really badass pose right then. And it kind of changes the whole dynamic and it captures the attention of the audience. Like, oh wow, like she put an effort to have her song and her choreography all go together. She's not just coming out here picking her favorite song and hitting her mandatory poses. If you go back and you watch all of my routines, you can tell like I take a lot of pride in my choreography.
One of the things that I ask all of my guests that I have on, whether they be, my bands, my musicians, or my bodybuilders, for my bands, I always ask, what is that feeling like when you get to go on stage, perform in front of, hundreds to thousands of people? But that also applies to my bodybuilders. What is that feeling like for you when you get to walk on stage, show off all of that hard work that you've worked months upon months for?
Prideful, pride, proud, honored, humbled, blessed, grateful. I don't get nervous. I don't know if that's because I've competed in, my younger years in life and I'm used to being on a platform where in gymnastics, it's not really a team sport, even though you're on a team, you're up there by yourself doing a beam routine. You're up there on by yourself doing the floor. So I think that might aid in why I don't have stage fright. But for me, just being able to go up there and take pride in the physique I'm bringing, even though it might not be the judge's pick that day, as long as I'm continuing to improve and be better than the last time I stepped on stage, then I have no reason to not go out there and smile and give it all I have.
Mhm. Yeah, I totally, and just that feeling. I always say, everyone find that one thing in your life that makes you feel like that, and just stick with it. I mean, we're on this planet for such a short amount of time, so just find that, and just honestly, just stick with it, because I mean, it's just so great that you found that one thing in your life. But now we go to one of the fun questions. What is your go-to post-show meal?
Oh my goodness. You know what? I don't really have like one certain one because I think every year, you prep and you either get refeeds or cheat meals or you don't, or you have cravings or you don't. But at this point, it kind of is like everything sounds good, but nothing does. So if we travel, we'll kind of look up online and see what restaurants are around and reviews and things like that. Look up menus and then decide and go from there. I've done sushi before. I've done Mexican. Um, a lot of times it's always just tons of sweets. Like all the girls will have sweets backstage, and by the time you even leave the venue, you're already full from everything that you either brought or people have gifted you or what have you. So honestly, I don't really have a favorite. I don't eat red meat, so it would never be like a burger and fries.
Well, unfortunately, I always say if I ever competed, I would just rent out a Five Guys and just walk in there with $1,000 and say, "Here, I'm buying you out for the night. Here's what's going to happen. I'm either going to die, I'm either going to throw up, or I'm going to pass out. But either way, you're feeding me everything that you have." So yeah, that's what I always say is my plan. But one of the most important questions that I love to talk about because it's not talked about really, I don't think really at all on Instagram, or it's not talked about as much as I think it should be, is that so many people. I mean, I've had friends come up to me and say, like, "Hey, I love watching your podcast," but they're surprised that a lot of these competitors. I mean, you're not going to be able to look that way 365 days out of the year when you're the look that you have on stage. So many people I think just don't understand that because I mean a lot of time these competitors, I mean, they just post, their photos of like when they're at the competition or stuff like that. But also too, I mean, it kind of boggles the mind because you're thinking a lot of people are sort of confused by the weight loss where they think if someone loses weight, they can maintain that. And a lot of people can, but they think with these competitors, if they put on all this muscle and they look that jacked, it's kind of like weight loss where you can just maintain it, but it's not. I mean, people don't realize when you walk on stage, you're usually at your weakest. I mean, you're just so depleted and you are going to have to put on weight. I mean, we've had people that have put on weight, the day after a show, or, people put on, like 30 pounds like a week after. But what has that experience been like with you, knowing that no matter what, all this hard work that you put into it, months upon months, you're not going to be able to maintain that look? Has that been a struggle for you?
Well, initially you don't really give it much thought because you don't know what to expect. And then sometimes people go from one extreme to the other where they rebound really hard because they've dieted for so long and your body doesn't naturally want to be that lean and you're already pushing it to its limits to get as lean as you should or as lean as you could. And then after it's over, you're like, well, the show's over. Now what? I'm just going to eat everything in sight. And then you blow up and gain a bunch of weight. So it took a long time for me to go through all of that and then redevelop healthy relationships with food, either after my next show or my next show, I either would reverse diet or I wouldn't, where I'd be like, you know what, I'm going to enjoy myself. I'm going to have a deload week or, go on vacation and enjoy myself. But that look is not sustainable forever. And those women that are doing that has a very unhealthy consequence. So I think finding a perfect balance of what works for you and personally, like what works for me is after my season is over, living my life a little, letting my receptors heal, letting my body heal, getting my blood work done, and just finding something else to look forward to and starting to embrace the curves again and starting to embrace the fact that I'm a little fluffy, even though we're supposed to have body fat, we're females, we're supposed to have higher body fat than men. It sucks when you don't have abs anymore and you're used to being shredded, but that's the name of the game. Like it's on season, off season, on, off, higher body fat, lean and shredded. So I think it just takes time to understand that everything comes full circle again. And yeah, when it's time to be shredded again, I will be. And when it's off season, keep it in check. If you feel like you're getting a little too, high of body fat or scales tipping one way too far, cut it back. Do a mini diet, do a mini cut for 4, 6, 8 weeks until you feel like that balance and that comfortable self again. Like for me personally, I know when I get in the high 180s, I start to freak out. That means it's like, okay, rein it in, Steph. Like, chill out on the donuts and the cookies and all that. When I have to pull my pants up over because I feel uncomfortable, then I know, like, I'm uncomfortable. I want to feel comfortable in my own skin. And it's okay to have higher body fat. I'm supposed to. But me, I know personally, like, I don't need to put on any more muscle. So the weight that's going up probably isn't muscle. I'm one of those people, I have abs in the off season. So if my abs start to fade completely, I know it's time to do a mini cut.
Well, and I always say it's just like starting a business too. You got to spend money to make money. You got to put on weight if you want to put on muscle too, especially for some of these competitors that really want to do that. So I mean, it's just realizing that hey, you're still in better shape than 99% of the people on the
Right.
planet. So that's one thing that I struggle with too. Like I said, told you before, I never competed, but just when I got out of college and I realized that like, hey, I don't have my free schedule like I had in college where I could go to the gym for, 2 hours a day, where now it's, a little bit more hectic. So once I started, putting on a little bit of weight and people were like, oh, you still look great. And I was like, don't lie to me. It's like, don't try to flatter me. But then I look at it and I was like, oh, I'm still in way better shape than they are. So yeah,
Right.
it's definitely one thing that I think a lot of people do struggle with. But now two of the questions that I love to ask all of the guests that I have on my show, the bodybuilders, I should say, is there are so many positive things for me when I started, working out and getting into shape. But one of the negative things is that you're going to get asked to move a lot of people's furniture. You're going to get asked to open a lot of pickle jars. I mean, I'm still at home with my parents for the next couple of months while I'm working, and then I'm about to move out. But every time they come home with groceries, I mean, I basically have to lift the car into the driveway and carry in all the groceries. Has that been a similar experience with you, where people obviously, I mean, well, the way that you look now, people obviously just take one look at you and just be like, oh, okay, yeah, she can help me with stuff.
People do not ask me to help them move furniture, nor do they ask me to open pickle jars. I think honestly, people are probably intimidated by me, so that in retrospect makes them like not want to ask me for help in a way, even though I would help anyone that asked. But if I'm super lean and I am close to show, I'm probably not going to help you
Yeah.
because I'm just look strong. I'm not
Mhm.
strong,
Yeah.
and I don't want to risk injury. So I'm sorry, but I can't help you.
No, and I always say too, yeah, it's like you have the best of both worlds now, because I also, being 6'3", I mean, I could have zero muscle at all and people would still have come up to me and say like, "Oh, hey, tall guy, come help me like do this stuff."
Yeah,
So yeah, I get that all the time. And that's another big thing that I love to talk about too, is that a lot of people don't realize, these bodybuilders, if you were to have like a bench press competition or just any weightlifting competition on the stage too with them, you would be shocked at usually the low amount that they could probably put up, just because they're so depleted. And the muscle is just aesthetic at that point. Now I know I had Katie Lee on, and Katie Lee is still probably benching like 290 pounds right now or whatever like that, because she's just one of those rare people that can lift super heavy. But I always say, that is just a huge shock, because I've had powerlifters on here that are, I had a female powerlifter on here that was about 5 feet tall and weighed like 160 pounds, and she was benching like 300 pounds. So I was like, okay, yeah, if you
that's
you would,
me.
yeah, I was gonna say, yeah, you would never guess that just by taking a look at them. So yeah, if
That's me. My strength doesn't really ever go down.
yeah. And that's it. That's just awesome. But so now I gotta say, so now what are your best lifts for bench, squat, and deadlift?
My PR on deadlift is 405. My PR on squat is 405, and my PR on bench is 305 or
Jesus.
315.
Now, how tall are you?
I'm 5'7".
Okay, I was gonna say, good, because I was gonna say, if you were like 5 feet tall, like I said, that one girl just embarrassed the
Yeah,
crap out of
no,
me. Where I was like,
I'm
okay,
not. I'm
I
no
was like,
Seth
yeah,
Cohen.
I was gonna say, if I'm a good like 15 inches taller than you, and you're still outlifting me and everything. But yes, okay, so
No,
good. So you're a little bit taller, so that makes it a little bit better. But yeah, that is just so amazing. But yeah, and then one of the things that I also got too is that, like, I was, whenever I'd go to bars and I'd be like, have like like a cutoff shirt, like girls would always come up to me and just like start feeling my arms without even me asking, and then they'd be like, "Oh my God, Becky, come check this guy out." And then, let's be honest, I was vain back then, so I'd pump it up a couple of times for him, and just be like, "Yeah, look at that." But how have you learned to deal with the fact that, like, you do not look like the average female, and you are going to get looks? That's just been something that it's been an adjustment for you, and that now you just kind of just let it just brush it off.
so at first it was a huge adjustment. Now I actually laugh because I will never forget this day or this story as long as I live. I was grocery shopping and there was a mom with her little girls, and maybe they had some friends with them, and they were following me around and they were laughing, and I knew they were staring at me, and I knew they were talking about me. And then I remember they were trying to take pictures, and you could hear the phone, like you could hear the capture button every time they did it. And I was just cracking up because I'm like, you know what? If you want a picture of me, just come up and ask. I'll take one. I'll flex. I'll do whatever. And then the next store, someone behind me in line had their phone out and was trying to take pictures. And I was like, guys, really? Like, I know I'm an
Yeah,
anomaly. You don't really see a blonde, shredded, big chick like this all the time. But in a way, like, it's kind of rude.
yeah,
Like, it's okay to talk about me. It's okay to look at me, but you're trying to take my picture and be secretive about it. And I just caught you. So now I call people out and I make them feel uncomfortable because they're, in a sense, being rude and trying to make me feel uncomfortable when I have nothing to feel uncomfortable about. I've worked very hard for this. I obviously want to look this way.
mhm,
Um, but it took a while to get to that. And my mom has asked me before, like, how do you deal with that? Why do you want to look like that? And I'm like, because I'm probably one of the only people I can say I'm genuinely happy doing something I love doing.
mhm. Absolutely. And I always say that, yeah, too. It's just fascinating how basically you become like an art exhibit for people, like you said, where they're trying to take pictures of you, or they're just trying to do that. But I always say, it's so fascinating to me is that in this day and age, you can never really make fun of someone for being fat. I mean, you would get torn apart by other people and the internet too. But for some reason, with muscular women, especially, that society seems to be where people just let it pass. Where like if someone were to like make fun and be like, "Oh yeah, she looks like a man," blah blah blah. We hear all that crap, and then it's just like, why is that acceptable to make fun of a female for having muscle? But if she was to say be like 400 pounds and you try to make fun of her, everyone would be like, "Oh no, that's rude. That's totally impolite." Or if she was like super skinny, then people would be like, "Oh, that's totally rude. It's impolite." I always just find that fascinating that is the case. Just for so many people, I always say it's kind of hard for them to look past the muscle. So like if you're walking down the street, people will just be like, "Oh, what's that? Like that's totally different. Like I never see that before." So it's hard to get to know the person. So that's why I love having, female bodybuilders and male bodybuilders, anyone with a lot of muscle on the show, because you're able to hear their stories and you're able to, look past the muscle and just realize, hey, they're just an average person just like me and you. I mean, they have a hell of a lot more dedication, and they obviously put in a lot more of the work in there. But it's just, I mean, yeah, so that's why I just love having our guests come on and share their stories, because it's just so awesome. But the other question are the two questions that I love to ask all the bodybuilders. So my favorite question, and again, anyone, this is a multi-million dollar idea, so you can come up with it or take with it what you will, but when it comes to clothes for fit people, I
Oh,
always say, see, we get that reaction every single time. Guys have their own problems with their super muscular, but women especially, I mean, I always say if you have like big broad shoulders, dresses aren't your best friend. Jeans are another thing that we hear of all the time, because if you have a big lower body and a small waist, jeans are not made for that. What have been some ways that you have found that you're able to compensate for the fact that your clothing options can be severely limited, especially when you're looking the way that you look right now, go on stage?
so the thing about females who compete and work out, we generally don't have to wear normal clothes. We're always in the gym or we're at home in our pajamas. So we don't really have to worry about it so much. But if there's an event or something we want to get dressed up for, fortunately, in this day and age, there are companies now that do accommodate for fit chicks. If you would have asked me this question 2 years ago, I would have just told you I live in leggings and I don't go out because nothing fits. Because I might try to put on clothes and I'll just get aggravated because nothing does fit. In retrospect, when you are in shape, things tend to fit you a little better and they show things off. So I try to stick with things that are like a little more form fitting or tight. As a bigger girl and a muscular girl, even when I'm in prep or not, I cannot wear sweaters. Like I can't wear big bulky stuff. I can't really, unless I spend a bunch of money on jeans like Freddie jeans, or there's certain brands out there that do fit. I can't just wear your normal like Abercrombie jeans or Express jeans. They're not going to fit my thighs and my butt. So luckily, as you know, everything evolves like it does. There are these companies now that do accommodate. Um, there's jeans. There's so many different things now that do fit and we have more readily available to us. It's just finding something that fits and suits you and doesn't look baggy or bulky or doesn't show off your curves or makes you look bigger. Shopping is not fun, that's for sure. And a lot of the shopping that you can do, it's all online, so you don't get to try it on. So you might have to take a couple extra steps because then when it gets to you, try it on, you don't like it, gotta send it back. Really, I probably need to go through my wardrobe because I don't wear 90% of it.
Yeah.
And high heels, I don't wear. You just look like gargantuan then. I don't know. Like I don't really ever have to go anywhere or dress up anymore. New Year's Eve, I mean, that was great. I went to the store and I was already lean, so I bought like a crop top and bought some high waisted, like loose pants. So it just takes more effort and time. It's definitely not like a fun thing to do. Go try on clothes. Like you don't just go shopping with your sister anymore.
Yeah. Well, no, and that's why I always say that. And again, I know that there are clothing companies now that have just started to make stuff, so it's really more available. But anyone out there, I mean, I had two fashion designers on my show, and I told them, I said, like I have people that bodybuilders, start making brands for them, because they're more than willing to come and buy some stuff from you. So yeah, they haven't got on it yet, but I still say, if you're still out there listening to this, guys, I mean, definitely get on it. But I always love to say, when you go to Instagram, you see like these transformation stories, you always see what it's like for the client, basically, what it's like for them, like, oh, I lost like 80 pounds. I feel so great. But you being someone that helps out people, has clients, what is that feeling like for you, knowing that you have worked so hard on this person and you've invested so much time and effort into this person, and they have really accomplished their results, and you see that you have made such a great change in their life. What is that feeling like for you as the trainer?
That's why I do what I
Yeah.
do. I'm changing one life at a time. And I know we can't change the world. I know we can only try to make our mark or make an impact. But that's my ultimate goal and why I do what I do is so that I can hopefully try to make someone better than who they used to be or better than they were.
Yeah, and I always love to ask that because so many people we don't understand really what that's like for the trainer. We just see like the post of, "Oh my god, I look so great. Like thank you to so and so for helping me lose this weight." But it's like, how does so and so feel that they because they put in almost just as much work as you have coming up with plans, really helping you with all all that motive. And basically, let's be honest, you're kind of almost like a therapist too for a lot of these people.
Oh my god.
Where
You
yeah,
you really get this sense of fulfillment, but it's changed my life to change other people's lives.
I couldn't agree more just how much just helping out that person achieve their goals could just be such a positive influence on just everyone in general. But obviously there's an obesity problem, and I love to ask this to all of our people that like trainers. What are some ways that you think just the average person, I mean just the general person, so like I'm not going to get like specific, be like, oh, so and so weighs this much and they do this stuff, but like just the average person who might just be a little obese, what are some tips that you have that they can do just to slowly change their mindset? Because so many people, I think one of the big problems is that they go to the gym and they try so hard early on and they don't realize that if you go in there guns blazing, it's going to be a lot harder to maintain that as if you go in there and you just slowly ramp things up a little bit. I mean, obviously if you go into the gym and you work out like 5 hours for like your first day, you're not going to want to go back the next day. So what tips do you have for people on how to do it the right way and how to get those results that they really want?
The internet. There's so much free knowledge out there. There's so many forums, bodybuilding.com. There are so many things that you can research before you just join a gym. There's so many free workout programs. There are so many just basic nutrition guidelines. So you start to do your research and your knowledge before you dive into it. And 9 times out of 10, you probably just need to start drinking more water and eliminate bad things out of your diet. I have so many people that come to me and they know that they're going to be sore and they know that, they're maybe not quite ready to work out. I'm like, let's just start with nutrition then, because you'll be surprised how much nutrition you can do in the first 30, 45 days without even stepping foot in the gym. So read, research in your spare time before bed, look up, you know, look up different fads and read why they're fads and maybe try something. If it works for you, great. If it doesn't, there's a million other things out there. So I would just say once you decide to make this change and you say, I'm gonna devote my life to a healthier lifestyle, then just read and get knowledge is power. So don't just join a gym and hire any coach. Do your research. Um,
Yeah.
and ask people who have been successful what worked and what didn't work, you know?
Yeah, it's just so important. It's important to also like reach out to people too and just let them know, because like we were talking about before, starting this by yourself, it can be so much more difficult. But yeah, definitely do your research and know what you're getting yourself into too with your different programs, because in this day and age, I mean, as opposed to, I've had people on that started working out in the 80s, where back then there's like two things that you could do. You could do like aerobics, or you could do working out, basic or weightlifting. Whereas nowadays you can do so many different things.
Everything.
So it's just so important just to realize the differences between those and how different things are going to impact your body. But you talked about this for like you just mentioned it like in a passing glance, but I love to bring it up because one of my favorite guests that I've ever had is I had the number one sleep professor on the planet come on. He called me all the way from Oxford in England, and first of all, he had one of those British accents where you felt smarter just by talking to him. Where I even told him, I was like, okay, you're just gonna talk the entire podcast and I'm gonna listen because my brain is getting a workout. Like I felt like I gained 10 IQ points. So he was talking about like the importance of sleep, and I said, like I have a lot of competitors and I have a lot of bands on here who might not have the best sleep schedule because they're playing all night, or like the competitors where, I mean, if you're getting sometimes, especially when you get to more towards the depleted aspect, it's going to be harder for sometimes to go to sleep. Like if you're hungry all the time. But you mentioned that you like to get like 8 to 10 hours. But how are you able to attain that, especially when you're getting to your more depleted phases? Where, let's be honest, I could get hangry, and I have a very hard time falling asleep when I'm really really hungry.
Death by a thousand naps.
Yeah.
I try to nap as much as I can if my schedule allows. If your schedule doesn't allow for naps, then you need to put yourself to bed earlier or maybe sleep in later. Don't do your fasted cardio. Maybe do your cardio after your workout so you can get that extra 30, 45 minutes in the morning of sleep. Sleep is critical and crucial to your physique and to your results and your progress. If you're not getting enough sleep, you're raising your cortisol levels, your stress, your adrenal glands probably shot because you are ringing it and you're putting it through the ringer and you're relying on stimulants. So sleep, 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 and then water. Like those are probably the two most critical, crucial things that you can do to be successful in this sport or just in a healthier lifestyle.
I always say there's almost no better feeling in the world than after you've had like an insanely heavy workout or insanely heavy lift and you get the proper amount of sleep that night where you say you get, you know, like your 8 to 10 hours and you feel like you wake up like a superhero basically because you've just been so well rested. I say there's almost no better feeling in the world. It's funny you were talking about like the drinking water. So I have a friend that I work nights and he was talking about how, you know, he's a little bit on the heavier side and he was talking about like I don't get what because he has a very physical job where he's doing what I used to do where, you know, you're lifting packages, you know, for 6 to 7 hours a night. He was talking about like, I don't know why I'm, you know, not in better shape or whatever. And I said, well, what do you eat and drink? He goes, well, I go through about like a gallon or two of Coca-Cola every single night or whatever. And I was like, well, there's the problem right there. Like we found the answer right there to that problem. So, and I was like, well, first of all, why? And he's like, well, I need it to be stimulated or whatever like that. And I was like, yeah, and he's also the guy that sometimes takes pre-workout without anything to drink before he goes to work, and then yeah, so yeah, he's an interesting fellow, but yeah, so I'll send him the link to this podcast and tell him like no, that's definitely what you don't need to do. Definitely drink water. But now we go to my favorite part of the podcast and the audience personal favorite, where we're gonna ask Stephanie here about a dozen or so health and fitness related questions, sort of more of like a getting to know you, where these are a little bit of a fun question. So for our first question, what is your go-to workout song at the moment?
So we just play Spotify and we literally have it on I think hip hop or gym workout. And I anything that is popular right now is probably playing. I'm not one of the people that relies on headphones or music. It's just always on. And when I work out, we tend to crank it up. So I don't really have a favorite song per se.
I always say I'm more of an old school where I gotta have like my cheesy '80s music where like I have like the entire Rocky Four soundtrack and I play at least one song from the Rocky Four soundtrack every workout. I just need my cheesiness and I need it, you know, just to help motivate me. Now let's be honest, like if I'm doing legs though, that's when I gotta get, you know, like my Metallica and my heavy metal and stuff like that, just to motivate me to get through those days. But I also have a problem. So I have like a gym at home, which is nice. And when I say gym, I mean like it's just, you know, a couple
Yeah.
of a little bit of equipment. Like it's obviously, you know, it's not like a real gym, but I always got to wait for the beat to drop when I'm working out. So like when I go to a normal
Yeah.
gym, I'll be doing like a lat pull down and all that. People come up to me and be like, "Hey, are you all right? Did you like pull out your back?" And I'm like, "Nope, just waiting for the beat to drop." So I am known throughout my gym as the guy that waits for the beat to drop. But you know,
If I'm gonna do like a one rep max or like try to set some sort of PRs, or if I'm lifting like 100-pound dumbbells on chest press, I have to have that song that has that beat. Like DMX does it for
yep.
me. There's certain songs that's like, okay, I'm getting into it now.
Yeah, well, yeah, one.
Like we're about to go.
And there's actually been studies that have proven that, yeah, too, if you have like the right amount of music, it can help raise your adrenaline and help boost your strength by anywhere. I think I heard it was almost upwards of like 20% almost if you get it done right. So yeah, that can just be so important. But now our next question, out of all the celebrities on the planet, if you could work out with any celebrity, who would it be?
What are you classifying as celebrity? Like
It could be
movie?
health and fitness, it could be movies, it could be anyone, like anyone that any like famous person if you wanted to work out with them.
Oh my goodness. Mike Metzer.
Mike Metzer.
He look up his look first of all, go read his book, but his legs are insane. I I would love to just pick his brain while we worked out. We'd probably be talking more than we would be working out because he's one of those huge people who influenced me when I first started bodybuilding. My dad gave me his book and I read it like I read parts of it over and over and over. Like I don't think I actually read the whole thing cover to cover because there were so many parts of it that were captivating that I just highlighted and then go back and read that. I'm like, wow, that guy almost like a CT Fletcher, like a modern day CT Fletcher. He's super motivating, but he's spitting the truth and telling you how it is.
And that's definitely so important to have those role models and to really just, you know, give that great sound advice. And, you know, thank you for not saying Dwayne The Rock Johnson because he's been our answer, you know, 90% of the time. So it's always great to have that variety. But now, what is one item that you always need to have in your fridge at all times?
Sugar free jelly.
That's good. Any flavor that's your favorite?
Red raspberry, probably. We always have to have sugar free jelly, and we always have backups in the pantry of it.
I was gonna say that's a Thanksgiving meal, basically. That's what I love to have on
It just
Thanksgiving.
it
Yeah.
goes great on egg whites. We make waffles. It goes great on that. I put it in my plain like Greek yogurt. I mean, if you have like a sweet tooth and you're allowed to have artificial sweeteners in your plan, 1 tablespoon is all you need, and it's like a game changer.
Yeah, and I always say the most shocking answer to me by far since I've done this podcast is mustard. We get mustard a lot, and that's because, you know, it
Ugh.
adds flavor to like whatever you're eating for these bodybuilders. And I always say, you know, if you have to put mustard on your egg whites or on whatever you're eating, it's like you might want to reevaluate your life because
Okay,
that's
you said fridge, but I have one thing that I probably is a prep staple that
oh,
we
that's fine.
can't go
Yeah,
without, and it's in my pantry. You want me to show you
yeah, that's
it?
fine. Yeah, sure. Oh,
ranch popcorn seasoning.
popcorn seasoning. Wow.
Yes, but the ranch flavor. Like, I put this on every meal. My boyfriend hates it because it gives you bad breath
Hmm.
because it has, like, garlic and onion
Yep.
seasoning in it, but it is amazing. Like, I'm addicted to it. I buy it in bulk off Amazon. This is my prep stable. Like, I I made, like, a little bit of a sacrifice. I'm like, "Okay, I won't have it in off season, but I have to have it in prep." I literally pour it on every meal. Every meal that doesn't get sugar-free jelly gets ranch popcorn seasoning.
And that's awesome because yeah, it's awesome to have those like those little quirks, which is why I love to ask that question. And you mentioned before that you don't eat red meat, and there's always that big myth that I mean, if you aren't really that into fitness, I mean, a lot of people believe that like, oh, any type of meat, will help you with the protein and building muscle. But what was your decision to not eat red meat, and what have been some alternatives that you found? Because there still is that myth that like you have to eat meat if you want to gain muscle or get protein.
So the reason that I chose not to eat red meat is one, I just don't like the flavor. I don't like ground beef. I don't like steak. I don't like it. Secondly, how long it takes your body to break it down and digest it. I don't like that. I don't like knowing that it has to rot in my stomach before it breaks down and digests. That's disgusting to me. I don't feel like I have good gut health when I eat red meat. 9 times out of 10, the reason people are eating red meat is their body is craving iron. So I can supplement iron on my own with a multivitamin. And I just don't crave it. I mean, I know that we're supposedly carnivores, but I don't because it's been out of my diet for since I was a kid. I really only ever eating red meat, maybe once or twice growing up. My parents would make beef stroganoff, but growing up, like maybe in tacos, I never just wanted a hamburger. I never picked that. So I think that's part of why, like, it was never really part of my lifestyle growing up. And so then when I got into bodybuilding, I was never like, oh, I want a steak. I want steak as my cheat meal. I want a hamburger. I don't eat red meat. I don't like its flavor. I don't like the texture, flavor, blood. Like, no.
Yeah. Well, and that's also brings me into an interesting thing. So next week I'm having on a guy who wrote a book about, like cavemen and how humans have evolved over time. So I'm definitely going to ask him that is like, are we like naturally just like carnivores, or was it something that we sort of adapted to? So that's actually an interesting question, and I could send you a link to that podcast just so that you can find that
Sure.
out, because yeah, that's just a really fascinating topic. But going back to the questionnaire, what is one thing that people who would meet you on Instagram, out of all your Instagram followers, if people were to meet you in person, would you think would be the most surprising thing that they would find out about you?
Oh, wow. I always get this. People say, you remind me of like a child, like a kid, like you have like this childlike essence and aura about you. Like, I don't know if that means I'm like silly or immature or what that means, but I get that a lot. And I think people are also kind of shocked that um, I'm still really feminine.
Mhm.
So people are like, you're really pretty. Like, you have all this muscle. We would expect you to maybe look a little rougher around the edges. And I'm like, well, I am 33, so I do have wrinkles, but I know they don't mean it like that. I know exactly what they mean when they say that. And I take a lot of pride in being able to maintain femininity in women's physique.
And that's awesome, and that's especially, for all the young girls out there, for all the young people that were might thinking about going to bodybuilding, you can still maintain that feminine look and still, be really, really muscular and really in shape. I mean, that's one of the things I think a lot of people fear when they were thinking about. I've had some guests on here that that they're in figure now and they were thinking about going up to physique, but they're like, I don't know if it's gonna make me look, a little bit different. And I always say like it can, but there's so many examples that I could give them where I was like, they still look feminine and they're still super feminine and they still have that muscle. So it's just so important, and I can't thank you enough for being that role model for people because it's just
Thank you.
so huge. But now, this is probably my favorite question out of anything that I'll ask you, and it's so if there would be like judges or anyone coming up to you and saying, you know what, Stephanie, we decided that you can change one thing about the sport of bodybuilding, and everyone would go along with it. What would be one thing that you would like to see changed?
Consistency in the judging. Um, you set out rules and guidelines and criteria for each division, and then you negate some of that and it gets lost along the way. You have the reigning Miss Olympia for what, 3 or 4 years Juliana had it. She no longer wants to compete anymore because the judges are not sticking true to what they said women's physique should be. And every year it's they will send out a mass email. We want you less hard, less lean, less muscular. But then what gets awarded? Those girls that are peeled to the bone to the point where they're literally female bodybuilding as far as body fat percentage. They might not have the mass and the muscle size, but leanness and body fat percentage, they're female bodybuilding. They're fully striated glutes, leg veins for days. It's changing the structure of their face. They're losing hair. Their voice sounds deep. It's like, okay, you're rewarding this though,
Yep.
but you got rid of female bodybuilding. So that doesn't make sense. So what direction are you trying to go with women's physique? So I would just say consistency in the judging for each division. Stick to it. Like if you say this is what we're looking for, then award that. Don't award the opposite of that, but then tell us we need to do this. But yet you're awarding this, if that makes sense.
I totally get it. And I always say that's one of the more unfair things with women because the men's division, I mean, it stayed the same almost throughout the test of time. I mean, they made a few changes, but it's never like every single year where they tell the ladies like, oh yeah, you might need to bulk up a little bit or we need you a little bit more leaner. So yeah, that's definitely one thing that I think is just so unfair. And I would honestly like to see that changed as well. But now we go to the fun question part of the questionnaire. So what was the last TV show that you binge watched?
Oh my God. We just watched I Shouldn't Be Alive. And I think it's on CBS or HBO. We have Amazon
Oh,
Prime
yep.
Video, and so we just go on there and we find stuff that has multiple seasons. We can binge watch it. And I want to say it was something like I Shouldn't Be Alive or something like that. It was some bizarre like or people it was like a documentary
Yeah.
but with fake actors and
Yeah.
actresses, and then the real people came on in the end and they're telling their story of what happened to them, and the crazy 48 hours it took for them to survive, or there was a guy out at sea for like 90 days floating in a little boat, like crazy shit
Mhm.
that and people found a way to survive through it and overcome it.
I love watching shows like that. Yeah, those are definitely some of my favorite ones. I mean, for me, I think the last TV show that I binge watched. Well, I'm gonna be watching that new Twilight Zone when it comes out because I was always a fan of the original, but now that the new one's coming
I
out,
like
I
that.
I definitely have to give that a look. See, but now everyone has one. What is a guilty pleasure movie that you enjoy?
A guilty pleasure
Yeah.
movie. Oh my God, you are putting me on the spot. If Titanic is on, I'm probably gonna watch it.
Yep. That is one of our more popular answers, and I am going to admit I've watched that movie probably about like 20 times. I mean, it's one of those things where, if it's on, yeah, just like you, I'm definitely going to watch it. And I always, that I always say in my formative years that one scene that when he's painting her, I mean, that was my first time that I saw anything. I was about 10 years old, so I was like, "Oh, that's awesome." So yeah, that's definitely one of my experiences. So I always remember that as being the movie where that happened. But yeah, I mean, it's a great movie, and I honestly like why people say it's a guilty pleasure movie. I always say it's just so massive that I mean, it definitely is one though. But for me, all my guy friends, close your ears. I'll never admit this in person, but Princess Bride is my guilty pleasure movie.
Oh no.
Yep. Yep.
That's
Coming out
hilarious.
here a minute. I mean, I was typing my thesis paper in college, and Princess Bride came on, and I dropped what I was doing and I watched it. And if that isn't dedication, I don't know what is. But yeah, that's definitely one of those movies where if it comes on, I'm definitely dropping whatever I'm
That's
doing,
funny.
and
I
I'm
wouldn't
watching it.
tell people that either.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Yes, yeah. So again, all my guy friends, you can come back on the podcast. Yeah, I'll never admit that in person. You listen to the podcast, you can hear it. But now our two final questions of the questionnaire that I love to ask. So now, if you could go back in time and talk to the 18-year-old version of yourself, what would be the best piece of advice you would give her?
Oh my goodness. Hmm. So I got married and had a child at 18, 19, 20. Like I got married really young, had a baby really young. My mom obviously strongly encouraged me not to, but the person I was with was in the military, so they strongly encourage you to. I think that I would probably go back and just say, slow down, Steph. Like, you don't have to be in such a hurry to grow up, you know? And I think when you're younger, you just want to be an adult. You want to have your own apartment. You can't wait, but you don't realize the mistakes you make along
Mm-hmm.
the way. You learn the hard way because you're willing to learn the hard way because you're not going to listen to your
Yep.
parents, you know? I would say that that would be it. Like, slow down. Just slow down.
I was gonna say, yeah, I'm 24, and the thought of having a kid to me is just like, what? Like, I have friends that have kids, and I'm like, what? So yeah, yeah, that's definitely that's
I
awesome.
have a 13-year-old.
Yeah, that's and what does she think about having a mom that is super in shape and has really big muscles? Does she like it or is she kind of indifferent?
Well, after 7 years, she's totally adapted to it, and it's her norm. She's
Yeah.
used to, me being half naked on Friday mornings, posing, doing a check-in video. But you know what? She doesn't really like coming to my shows anymore. It doesn't really bother me. I know why, because they're super long, and she's like super anti like bikini division. So she's like, I don't want to go watch girls shake their butts up there. So I don't blame her, but she still supports me and she loves it, and she's super proud of me. And people Google me at her school and like pass around pictures of me, and so she's somewhat embarrassed, but she's like, "Yeah, my mom's badass,
Like, dude,
so
your
don't mess
mom's
with me."
jacked. Yeah, stuff like that. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah. We get that all the time. So yeah, and that's awesome. But now the final question of the questionnaire part: if we were to talk to you a year from now, where would you like to be at? I mean, your bodybuilding and just in your personal life. What is the goal? Like, if we were to talk to you a year from today.
So every year around New Year's, my boyfriend and I we sit down and we write out our yearly goals. So I don't really have my yearly goals for next year yet, but in my mind, I know where I want to be. Um, Business, professional, bodybuilding. Bodybuilding, I would love to be getting ready to prep for the Olympia. Obviously, I think that's everyone's hope and dream is to make it Olympia, but not just make it there, but actually make an impact, whether that's top 5 or top 10 or whatever your goal is or your dream is to win it, whatever. So obviously next year I'd like to be just about starting prep for the Olympia. Business wise, we own a gym and I just want to keep growing and keep trying to make an impact on as many lives as I can, whether that's through like online clients or in person. I have actually recently really been considering possibly going back to school to learn massage therapy so we can offer that to our clients as well. But not just like Swedish massage, more of like deep tissue and cupping and things that are going to help in your healing and recovery. So, in essence, help in your progress. And so maybe I'll be in school.
Yeah. And that's awesome. And where's your gym located? So anyone who's listening on here, if they're interested, getting a workout in and finding a new gym, where can they find you?
So, our gym is located just south of Eli Lilly, downtown Indianapolis.
All right. Yeah, so I'll leave an address. I'll get all the info down. I'll leave it down below so everyone can go and check it out. And now, so you're 11 weeks out. What show are you prepping for?
I am prepping for there is a show in Fort Lauderdale, Tim Gardner Productions. It is called the Atlantic Coast Championships, and it is June 21st.
That is awesome. And again, we wish her nothing but the best. And obviously, she's taking a look at her right now. She's 11 weeks out, and I already think that she can win the whole damn thing. So, well, 11 weeks from now, I mean, I can't even imagine what she's going to be looking like. But again, everyone, go and give her a follow. I'll leave a link to all of her stuff down below. And Stephanie, again, we cannot thank you enough for coming on. You were a great guest, and it was a pleasure talking to
Thank
you.
you so much.
Absolutely. Now, could you end it with another front double bicep for us? We just gotta. I mean, everyone. It's not even fair just looking at her. It's like, come on. It's like, look at that. It's not even fair, everyone. So again, you guys, thank you so much for coming on. I really, really appreciate it. And this is
Thank
Ryan
you.
Johnson, DD on the spot, signing out. Have a great day, everyone.